They called him Psycho Sam. 4 victims, 4 days of horror, and lyrics that hid a deadly secret in plain sight. It started with music, but it ended in blood. This is the disturbing case of the horrorcore killer, where fantasy became a nightmare no one could escape. What is horrorcore music? Horrorcore, a subgenre of hip-hop where the macabre meets music. The lyrics often describe gruesome violence, bloodshed, and morbid fantasies. Horrorcore artists embrace the darkest corners of human nature, using shock value to captivate their audience. For most, it's an act, a character they portray. But for one fan, these lyrics became the blueprint for murder. Enter Richard McCroskey, better known by his stage name, Psycho Sam. McCroskey was deeply involved in the horrorcore community, finding comfort in its violent imagery. But for him, this wasn't just entertainment. It was an escape from a reality he struggled to navigate, the reality that would ultimately push him toward a horrifying crime spree. Richard Alden, Samuel McCroskey, the perpetrator. Richard Alden. Samuel McCroskey III, born on December 26, 1988, was a graphic designer and an aspiring horrorcore rapper. He lived with his father and 21-year-old sister, Sarah, in Castro Valley, California. Originally raised in Hayward, California, McCroskey and his family had relocated to Castro Valley. From an early age, McCroskey was an outsider. In high school, he was often teased and bullied due to his weight and red hair, leading neighbors to describe him as a loner. McCroskey's dark persona found an outlet online. His MySpace page was filled with the violent horrorcore lyrics he wrote, exploring gruesome themes like mutilation and murder. However, this behavior was largely seen as a form of artistic expression within his niche community. Academically, McCroskey struggled. He dropped out of Tennyson High School before briefly attending Hayward High School, only to drop out again. Just 5 months before the murders, McCroskey's life took a difficult turn when his father asked their mother to leave the home, devastating him. In September 2009, he was excited for a long-awaited trip to Virginia to visit Emma Niederbrock, a girl he had been dating online for nearly a year, maintaining daily phone contact. On September 6, 2009, McCroskey flew to Virginia, setting the stage for a tragic and violent series of events: a festival, a failed love, and 4 murders. The Farmville Nightmare. The brutal murders occurred in Farmville, Virginia, at the home of Dr. Deborah Kelly, where she lived with her daughter, Emma Niederbrock. On September 18, 2009, around 3 p.m., police discovered a horrifying scene. 4 bodies, bludgeoned to death with a hammer and a maul. 3 of the bodies were found in a downstairs bedroom, and 1 was located in an upstairs room. The gruesome attack had taken place days earlier, and the house was disturbingly silent when authorities arrived. In the days before the murders, Emma's parents, Deborah Kelly and Mark Niederbrock, had taken Emma, her friend Melanie Wells, and Richard McCroskey to the Strictly for the Wicked Festival, a horrorcore music event in Southgate, Michigan. McCroskey, an aspiring horrorcore rapper, had traveled from California to visit Emma, whom he had been dating online for almost a year. However, tensions escalated during the trip. McCroskey grew increasingly upset over his faltering relationship with Emma, who had exchanged text messages with others that troubled him, leading him to feel betrayed. According to Prince Edward County Commonwealth's attorney James Ennis, McCroskey's frustration over his deteriorating relationship with Emma fueled the rage that resulted in the tragic killings. After returning from the festival, McCroskey's anger boiled over. In the early hours of September 15, 2009, around 3 a.m., he launched a deadly attack on the unsuspecting household. His first victim was Melanie Wells, who was asleep on a sofa in a first-floor den. McCroskey then went upstairs, where he murdered Deborah Kelly in her bedroom before descending again to Emma's room to kill her. Each victim was struck multiple times with the maul, and none of them woke during the attack. There were no signs of struggle or defensive wounds, indicating they were taken by surprise. 3 days later, on September 17th, Mark Niederbrock arrived at the house, unaware of the horror that had unfolded. McCroskey attacked him in the living room, delivering multiple blows with the maul. Mark attempted to defend himself, but he was ultimately overwhelmed. The attack was so violent that the hardwood floor beneath Niederbrock was soaked with blood and severely damaged. After killing Mark, McCroskey moved his body to Emma's room, where he also placed Melanie Wells' body. He even attempted to clean up the blood in the den where Melanie Wells had been killed. During this time, he made a digital recording of himself, acknowledging what he had done. However, instead of taking his own life, McCroskey stole Mark Niederbrock's car and attempted to flee the scene, heading toward Richmond International Airport. The victims of the Farmville murders, remembering 4 lives. Mark Niederbrock was a pastor at Walker's Presbyterian Church in Hicksburg, Appomattox County, and the father of 16-year-old Emma Niederbrock. Originally from Illinois, he was an Eagle Scout and a graduate of the University of Illinois. Before entering the ministry, Mark worked as a graphic designer. Dr. Deborah S. Kelly, 53, was an associate professor of sociology and criminal justice at Longwood University. She was a mentor to many students who pursued careers in law enforcement and fire rescue services. Emma Niederbrock, their 16-year-old daughter, had been homeschooled and befriended Richard McCroskey, her eventual murderer, online. Melanie Wells, 18, was Emma's friend from Inwood, West Virginia. She had dropped out of Musselman High School and was studying for her high school equivalency diploma while staying with the Niederbrock family. The capture and conviction of Richard McCroskey, a brutal end to the Farmville murders. Before the murders were discovered, Melanie Wells's mother grew concerned about her daughter's safety and repeatedly called the Kelly home to check on her. Each time she spoke with Richard McCroskey, he offered a different excuse about Melanie's whereabouts. Eventually, Wells's mother contacted the police, asking them to check on her daughter at the Kelly residence. When the police first arrived at the Kelly home, McCroskey answered the door and told officers that Wells had gone to the movies with a friend. Satisfied with this explanation, the police left. However, when Wells' mother called the police again, they returned to the house. This time, the officers discovered the bodies of McCroskey's 4 victims. By the time the authorities uncovered the murders, McCroskey had already fled the scene. He had stolen and crashed Mark Niederbrock's 2000 Honda, but was issued only a summons for driving without a license by an unsuspecting deputy who was unaware of the horrific crimes McCroskey had committed. During this period, McCroskey made a call to confess that he had killed the victims. On September 19, 2009, McCroskey was apprehended at Richmond International Airport, where police found him sleeping in the baggage claim area, preparing to board a flight back to California. At the time of his arrest, McCroskey had no prior criminal record. Initially, he was charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and grand larceny. However, these charges were later escalated to 6 counts of capital murder under Virginia law. McCroskey did not cooperate with police after his arrest, and authorities gathered a significant amount of evidence, including his computer and other items from his home. The crime scene was described as a slaughterhouse, and the victims were determined to have died from blunt force trauma to the head. In September 2010, McCroskey pleaded guilty to the 4 murders. While he faced the possibility of the death penalty, a plea agreement was reached, and McCroskey was sentenced to life in prison. Commonwealth's attorney James Ennis stated that the victims' families supported the decision to avoid trial and the death penalty. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the dark case of the Horrorcore Killer. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries that explore the disturbing, the tragic, and the unexplainable.